And now we can. Okay, fantastic. So I'm assuming we have people coming in. We're going to wait about 5 minutes to get things started. If you arrive here and want to say hello in the chat, please feel free. Let us know that people are coming in. But yeah, we're going to wait about 5 minutes to get some things started. If any of the panelists want to use this time and get water before we start, I would recommend having something. I often forget to have a beverage before doing. Oh, it was so cute. Everyone was so prepared. I don't have water, but I have coffee, which is very on brand for me. Oh, my background's backwards. I don't even know. Is it backwards for everybody or just me?
No, it's good.
Oh, weird. It's backwards for, I guess like my video is flipped. I thought it was going crazy. Thanks. In my defense, it is backwards for me. I'm not losing my mind. Hope everyone's having a good QuidCon day so far. I was just telling the panelists how I went to Christian Barnes's DEI workshop, and it was really fantastic. And I really hope that it is made available. And I personally believe that it should be required viewing for at least all leadership within USQ and MLQ and Quidditch Canada, if not everybody, because it was very, very, very well done. So I mentioned that. We'll give it like 3 or so more minutes. Panelists, how are your days going?
I woke up like 2 hours ago.
It's
lit.
I don't even have an excuse because I'm on the East Coast.
I am very thankful that I was not assigned any early morning slots because morning on the East Coast is much more morning for me. I didn't want to do that. But we're here, 10:30. It's easy breezy.
Christian, I sent you a chat. I don't know if you could see it. Hey, do you know what movie you're gonna chill with later tonight?
It's not a movie at all.
Is it Quidditch film? I hope it's Quidditch film.
It is. Yeah, I think I don't think there was a post sent out at all advertising what it is. So I feel like I'm gonna hoodwink a couple people with that ending panel. I wish it was just a panel of me watching a movie and you watch me watch a movie. That was my ideal thing. Yeah. But I never acknowledged the Zoom.
I would watch that, embarrassingly, but yeah.
Yo, oddly enough, I haven't seen Mudbloods yet. I don't know if that's
it's super dated now, so it's like fun to watch. But I really enjoy it. I think because it's so dated, you have to just like enjoy it for what it is and not as like a serious like piece of Quidditch film.
For sure.
But it's really good. I do recommend it.
That UCLA team was really good though.
Yeah, it's true. I just actually saw for the first time the piece that Philip Long did for UC Irvine when they qualified for nationals, and it was like put out a long time ago, but I just saw it. Yeah, that one, the 131st. It's like really short, like it's just like a 15-minute YouTube thing. I was emotional. And I don't know, like I know people now because I've been in the West for longer, but that it was like about the regionals. That was my first West tournament. And I was like really hyped that day, but then watching that video again and like knowing the people and stuff, it was crazy. So highly recommend if you're looking for a quick Quidditch media video to take up 15 minutes of your life. Okay. We've got a few. Yes, Christian, I believe it is. I believe Connie Henderson just shared it on Facebook, which is how I see it, but I believe it's posted on YouTube like normal. It's called 131st. Elizabeth Barcel is going to drop the link in the chat. It's like a 15-minute storyline of UCI qualifying for their first national tournament after having a lot of bad years. Okay, so I think we are good to get started. It is 10, well, for me, it's 10:35. We are going to get into this. So welcome to Stories, News, and Content. Where to next in Quidditch Media. We are very excited to be here, at least I am, and we're gonna have our panelists introduce themselves. So Jack, you can go first.
Oh, I was just typing in the chat. It's great to be back, which is how I feel. Hi, I'm Jack Mcgovern. I use he, him, his pronouns. I used to go by Jack the Fan, and I still love it if people call me that. I went by Jack the Fan because I was a middle school Quidditch blogger, and my parents wanted me to protect my identity. And I went with it, and it changed my life, put me on a really cool path. And while I haven't gotten the chance to play competitive Quidditch in the US, I go to a small school in the middle of nowhere, and I tried to start a team, but I was unsuccessful. And last year I got the opportunity to play overseas before the COVID pandemic. I'm hopeful that I will be playing again soon as a community team member.
Awesome. All right, Isabella, if you want to go next.
Hi everyone, I'm Izzy, or Isabella Gone of Isabella Gone Photography. I've been taking pictures for 12 years now, Quidditch for 9, playing for 9 as well. Started off with Penn Quidditch, repping this college team. And then after that, the Philadelphia Honey Badgers. And then I had a year with the Rogues in New York City, and before resuming with Philadelphia Freedom right before COVID. And I've also volunteered for the US Photo Cup team since World Cup 6.
All right, Tate.
Hi, my name is Tate. I've been playing since 2016. I joined the house teams at UT, which are like intramural teams. And then the next 3 seasons I played, well, not 2.5, let's say. I forgot about COVID. I played on the Texas varsity traveling team. I've also played some Quidditch for MLQ Outlaws, and I'm currently on the US national team. I play beater, I forgot to say. And recently, this past year, I started my own Quidditch podcast. So, yeah.
All right, and last but not least, Naresh.
Hello, everyone. I'm Naresh Udala, he, him pronouns. I started playing Quidditch in 2016, and I'm sure some of you have heard like the whole Rutgers ordeal that happened. So I took over as president, rebuilt the program, and I graduated in 2020. And obviously, pandemic started, and that's when a whole lot of things happened, which I know we'll get into. But I was co-founded Fast Break News, which is one of my favorite Quidditch media sites there is out there. Biased, I know, but before that, I did start a podcast called Hoopside Chats with Keegan Remy Miller, and we've been just going at it since. And I'm very excited to be here.
Awesome, fantastic. So these are your panelists. I'm Lindsay Simpson. That's not important because I'm not the point. All right, so let's dive right into things. Let's start with Izzy because this is the photo of you playing, doing your thing. But why did you get involved with Quidditch media, and like what drew you into the sport in the first place? Oh my God.
Sure, I'll start with what drew me into the sport. Honestly, Quidditch was my first ever sport. I feel like I'm a minority in this, but I didn't have an athletic background. I was just a huge Harry Potter fan, and honestly, I credit the books to getting me out of my shell and to really try new things. And through Quidditch, I became the athlete I am today and started venturing out into other sports. So as a photographer, I already had that hobby going on. It just made sense for me to merge it with Quidditch. Specifically, I love like action photography. One of my first subjects that I shot were birds in flight. So when I moved to Philly for college, there's not much wildlife out there, but hey, sports and action, and Quidditch quickly followed through with that.
Awesome. Jack, specifically you starting out at such like a young age, like what kind of got you into it in the first place?
Yeah, I'd always loved sports. And in sixth grade, I discovered Harry Potter and I was immediately drawn to Quidditch. I wanted to know how it was played. I started Google searching and YouTube searching, intending to find results from the movies, which I just hadn't watched yet. And I was waiting until I finished reading the series. And I stumbled across advertisements for Quidditch World Cup 4 in New York City, the first Quidditch World Cup held outside Middlebury. I was, I think, 11, and I'm from the suburbs of Philadelphia. I begged my dad to take me. We went on a Bolt bus from 30th Street Station to Penn Station, and I fell in love. Over the course of the next year, I had been following articles about Quidditch anywhere that I could find them. So MuggleNet, the IQA website. And what I really wanted to do was read more articles about Quidditch. And at a certain point, I decided that I wanted to fill that void. And I started a blog. At first, it was a blog that talked about Quidditch and my thoughts on various other sports. I narrowed that pretty quickly and decided that I just wanted to write about Quidditch. And I got some cool opportunities from teams that reached out to me, people from the University of Florida at World Cup 5 kind of took me under their wing and, had me come to their games and encouraged me to write about their games. And so I was sort of the correspondent for Florida Quidditch. They made a run all the way to the finals that year. So that was a lot of fun, and I kept going from there. I'll talk more later. But that was, what really got me into blogging about Quidditch.
Awesome. This is probably the only question I'm going to ask all the panelists, intentionally, because I do want to hear everyone's background. So, Tate, what about you? How'd you get involved? Why?
So I guess I'll start with how I got into the sport. Admittedly, don't know a whole lot about Harry Potter. I'm not the big Harry Potter fan. My freshman year on campus, my friends and I, we did marching band, which is, super nerdy going to Quidditch now. In high school, and we weren't doing it in college, and we were looking for something to do, and we were like, hey, let's do Quidditch. That'll be funny. Let's do it as a joke. So I kind of started out trying to join as a joke. Joke was on me. I was the only one that showed up though, to the tryout. Excuse me. But from then, from that tryout, I saw that this was a legit thing. It was a legit sport. It was competitive. And growing up, I've always been super involved and nerdy about just paying attention to sport things, whether it be whatever sport, basketball, baseball, football, whatever it may be. And this was one that I could potentially excel at playing. So I worked really hard and wanted to do more of it. And then as I've gone on, through college, I switched from a physics major to a sports management major. I decided I wanted to do this as, a career. I wanted it to be part of my life, involved in sports and things like that. And then as I've graduated now and no longer really under a media blackout that UT does, I kind of wanted to throw my hat in the ring and take a stab at my own take, I guess, on sports media and podcasting, the stuff that I kind of listen to normally, every day. I thought that I could maybe try to inject a little bit of that into the sport to maybe bring some legitimacy and, a different kind of mindset to what has been the norm.
Awesome. And then what about you, Naresh?
So I started playing Quidditch in 2016, and I'll be honest, I was a Harry Potter fan. Was one of those kids that would wake up at like 5 in the morning just to read the books, reread the books. It was one of those things. I got to college, didn't know Quidditch was a thing. I didn't even sign up when I saw at the club fair. I walked in at like 11 a.m., saw that there was a Quidditch team, laughed at them, and then walked away. And then, and then like 2 minutes, it was at like 4:55 or whatever. It was like 2 minutes before the club fair was ending. I walked by him again. I was like, you know what? Let me sign up. I signed up, went to the first tryout, and I just absolutely fell in love with the sport. Um, I used to play beater, and my first ever of thing that happened, which I really just I think cemented for why I love the sport so much. I had to go up against Devin Lee at beater, and it was game changing. It was so much fun, and ever since then, I just started playing, um, it's why I got into Quidditch media in particular is because I felt, especially in the last 2 years or so, I felt there was a steady decline of emphasis on college athletes other than like the elites. Like we know the elite players, like we talk about them all the time, and that's great because we want that. Like we want to build stars in the sport, but we also want to get everyone else who usually doesn't get the shine, the role players, the number two options. Like we want those players to also get their shine. And so I just wanted to create a platform that really focuses on the college athlete and highlight their experiences. And that really is what pushed me towards building a platform and getting into Quidditch media and focusing on everything that I wish I could have had when I was in college. Because I want my freshmen to, well, they're not my freshmen anymore, they're sophomores now, but I want my recruits, like the people that I recruited, to be able to get the shine that they deserve. And because everyone's putting in a lot of work for this. And so I do want the college athlete to get their shine again. So that's why I joined, I guess.
Awesome. All right, so moving on, we'll circle right back to Naresh for this question, but what's the proudest moment in something that you've created within Quidditch media? Naresh, you've done so much in such a short period of time, so you're a great place to start on what have you been the proudest about, I guess?
Oh, I think absolutely what Fast Break News has become and what we started off with. And even like going into further is the game archives that Keegan and I created, where it is the biggest video directory that Quidditch has ever seen. And I think that is by far one of the greatest things I've been a part of, because everyone's like, oh, I want to watch Quidditch film, but like I don't know what film to watch, or there's I don't know where to watch film, and like Facebook links are awful and like they're not high quality and stuff like that. And so Keegan and I, we just sat there, and it was honestly all Keegan. Amazing, props to him. I helped out, but it was just such an important project for us because we wanted to compile a list of all games because we wanted to create stats, right? That was the initial goal. We wanted to compile all the stats from the split, which was 2017, 2018, up until now to figure out stats for Quidditch because we felt like stats was lacking. And then that quickly led into us getting all the games. And then that was like, hey, we pretty much compiled every single game here. Why not just search for the film while we're at it? And so I can say that right now on our game database archive, we have, I think, 560 something game film out of a total of 2,500 games played. And that's something I'm very excited about. And just the response to it, I think, has been absolutely amazing. And I genuinely appreciate everyone that's been able to click on it, watch it, or like use that feature on Fast Break News. So, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I was talking to a New York friend recently who made the comparison that Fast Break is kind of like ESPN while the Eighth Man is like NFL Network. And to me, that resonated with me. So people are really enjoying what Fast Break is doing. Jack, what about you? Again, like you have such an interesting story as far as like your Quidditch timeline. So what's something that you've been really like proud about in your journey?
Yeah. First of all, this slide is so well put together. I love the illustrations. But I would say the work that I did at Quidditch World Cup 7 and 8 with editorial teams that were very large. At 7, it was under the umbrella of the US Quidditch editorial team. At World Cup 8, it was under the umbrella of something called the Quidditch Media Coalition. But basically, these were groups of 20, 30, 40 writers, photographers, editors that came together to really focus on written recaps of games at nationals, which had never been done before on that scale. And hasn't been done since, for some good reasons. It was incredibly challenging, but it was a real group effort. And I remember it just took constant communication with all parties to make sure that leading up to the World Cup, people knew what games they were supposed to attend and cover, and where they could write or upload their photos. And then during the event, making sure when schedules inevitably changed and got behind, that people were still available. We were trying to create websites, sort of like what Naresh said, that looked like Sports Center, so that people who didn't get the chance to attend nationals could follow along. And really know what happened to the teams that they cared about. And I was really proud of just the immense quantity of written content that we as a group were able to produce, written and visual content, those 2 weekends. I was really proud of everyone.
Awesome. Izzy and Tate, is there anything either of you want to add about the proudest thing that you've put together for Quidditch?
Sure. I mean, I remember the Quidditch Media Coalition. Honestly, that was an amazing effort because us photographers were like uploading as soon as we took those shots, keeping track in our heads what was the best money shot and handing it over. And these articles were going live, and people were dedicated into like learning everything about that team. And that was just an amazing effort. And I know it was hard, but I hope that we could see that again. I feel like that requires a lot more non-playing volunteers. And I feel like with a lot of us alums, the alumni population growing, I feel like we can definitely see that happening again in the future.
Awesome, fantastic. We're gonna move on, and we'll start with Tate for this question. Like where, especially as you're like a newer person in Quidditch media, like where do you see the future going? Like what improvements would you like to see to make Quidditch media a better place?
Yeah, so like we've kind of mentioned with, I guess, with Fast Break, I think what the things that Fast Break are doing are very essential and like very positive. But full disclaimer, I am a part of the Fast Break team. That's where kind of I forgot to mention my podcast is kind of housed at. Definitely a lesser role than compared to like say people like Fiona or Naresh. Excuse me. I'm more like support, and I haven't been able to put in as much effort with it as they have. But in terms of like what we can do and how is it changing, I think that for me, when I originally wanted to come in and join, I listened to a lot of podcasts that, it's very chummy. It's just people talking, chatting about it, but it's very interesting to listen to that what they're talking about. They're credible people in what they're talking about, right? So even though it sounds very casual and it's a conversation, right? This is maybe specifically for podcasts, but even articles too. I like that kind of casual flair. I don't like something super preppy. And I think that translates very well to a sport like ours. But they're credible people and you know what they're talking about. There's emphasis behind what they say. And for me coming in, it's been a weird thing where it's like in sports, people can critique pro athletes, right? And they can say this person's doing this bad or they need to be doing this, right? And I was like, oh, we can inject that into Quidditch, right? But in terms of what we've been kind of trying to do in terms of build up the community and try to showcase maybe lesser known players, and try to, like, you know, be better be a better community, that is kind of contradictory. So I think finding a way to balance between being critical or like presenting analysis of teams, play, things like that, I think are super important, trying to up our level of thinking, but doing it in a way where it's either instead of saying this person isn't doing this correctly or this team is bad at this, right? Saying they don't do this well, here's what they can do to succeed in the future, like offering that within an article, within a podcast, right? Like there is critique, which I feel like there hasn't been a whole lot of critique, right? It's more like just bashing, kind of like, oh, this is bad and they're bad at this and they won't be good at it. Where it's like, again, like I was saying, critique as in they don't do this well. This is what they can do to improve it. If they improve it, they will succeed. Correct? Or right? Things like that, where kind of upping our level of thinking and being open to that criticism too as a community. That's another thing too, is like in terms of like the media is presenting that, right? But as a community, I feel like there's been a lot of rejection in terms of what people are saying sometimes. And we need to be open to that.
Agreed. All right, fantastic. Izzy, what about you? What do you think?
Yeah, so it's a great point, Tate. I feel like recently, from what I see, there's definitely this urge to engage in Quidditch discussions. But sometimes I feel like the avenues that we have for it on like certain forums feel a little scary sometimes to bring up your thoughts, especially since like, as a minority, as a woman, as a chaser, as a photographer, it can feel like I understand both sides of a conversation, but seeing how things can get heated sometimes, I feel like I like to have those conversations off these platforms. But then again, the sad thing is that people don't get to see it. So for the solution for what we see for, like, I guess the future of Quidditch media, we can consider also new apps that have come out. And I've mentioned this to Lindsay in our conversation offline. I feel like Clubhouse is a huge thing. I also have invites. So everyone on Slack, if you need an invite to Clubhouse, let me know. Because I want to start holding rooms so I can eventually start a Clubhouse Quidditch room, because I think we really need to foster that discussion, not just on a forum where I feel like it's so easy to misinterpret people's intentions, people's tones, and you get all this reactionary. I mean, I'm like guilty as well of reading someone's post and feeling like it's a personal attack, but then later talking to them in person instead of posting and realizing, oh my gosh, we have so much in common. We totally understand, we're on the same page. And I think we need to foster those conversations. And in a safe environment, first off, Clubhouse, there's a lot of people that can listen in, lead quietly, and be able to directly talk to the people who are involved in the topic at hand.
Yeah, just to go off of that, literally one of the most productive conversations I've had about Quidditch in the last year has been with Izzy this past week about like my post in AQD, and like having those conversations in a space where like there can be like a consistent back and forth as opposed to like proofreading comments and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like it's so much better and healthier. So I think Clubhouse and similar aspects, even like QuidCon, like this is a great example of a place for us to be connecting more face-to-face and having these discussions. So big fan of that. Naresh, did you have something to add, or did you want to move on?
I mean, Izzy said it best. I think there's a lot of, we've seen in the last year how just online interactions can definitely leave negative taste in people's mouths. But in terms of finding that next platform, I think that's the biggest question mark for Quidditch, because I think a lot of conversation is pretty much dominated by the older generation, and that's not a bad thing per se, but it's a really fine balance that we have to find, where we're keeping the old people involved, while we're bringing on new, younger audience, right? Because the future of the sport is the current college athlete. Like the current club players, they have shown me they've been around for a while, so they're going to continue playing. They're going to continue discussing, but it's the current college athlete that obviously we're not seeing enough of. And I think figuring out a platform, because obviously Facebook's not it. We've talked about this for months on end now. I think Clubhouse, I've never tried Clubhouse personally, but if that's an option, like we should definitely be testing out different modes of communication, because right now we need to see a lot more college athletes from day one, from not day one, but like, you know what I mean, from like taking a charge in their experiences in Quidditch. And so I think that's the next challenge that we have to find. And whether that be like a website that allows for comments to be posted, or Clubhouse, like Izzy said, like, it's just one of those things that we do have. That's the next challenge for us and as a community as a whole, because I think we do need to get off of Facebook and just move on. But yeah.
It is hard when Facebook is just such an like a piece for everybody. And the best solution is if Facebook was still cool and people still wanted to use it because it has everything that we need. But obviously that's not going to work. But anyway, we're going to move on. We've got about 20 minutes left just to keep us aware of time. We'll start this question with Jack. But like, we've obviously seen that we've moved away from the written piece, but this is where you started and how you started. Do you still think that there's a need for the written piece? You're still writing as of Saturday, March 21st of last year. So do you think that you want to see us continue to move away for it? Like, what's your take on that?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think there's always a place for the written word. I mean, if you look at how other sports are covered, there are various platforms in addition to, ESPN, Fansided, Bleacher Report, The Athletic. I don't know what that would look like for Quidditch, a sort of small subscription service where writers could even be compensated to a degree, a very small degree, but that was my idea for the last question. Kind of a collective where people could buy in and get access to really thoughtful content. So I think there's still a need for the written word, but yeah, I mean, I agree with everyone else that moving beyond Facebook is probably the way to go to some degree.
Awesome. I also think that writing is just like the most accessible form of media, as far as like disability and etc. Like, not every podcast and YouTube thing is captioned, and just having, like, still continuing to have this is a big aspect of it. Tate, what about you? What's your take?
Sorry. Yeah, I really agree with what Izzy was saying in terms of what people write online. There's no tone to it. There's no, like, for example, I'm a very sarcastic person, so I could type something online and that sarcasm just doesn't translate, right? So I do believe, I don't want to take like a hobby away from Jack and say there's no place for written word. I think that there is, and definitely for people that, like, if Jack were to write something or even just make a comment on something, right? I'm listening and I'm understanding because he has the credibility that I know what he's saying is legitimate. He's thought it through. There is analysis to what he said. And I think there's been an issue with maybe people that make comments on, let's say, Facebook threads, right? And then they write an article. The personality gets meshed, right? So then there's this issue of, like I kind of was saying, where they think that because someone said something in a Facebook thread, that kind of thinking is transferred into an article, even though the article might be well written, there is analysis to it and everything. So I definitely agree with, like, moving away from like a Facebook forum style or something like that. And also it's just like emphasized on podcasts too, that's the one thing that I enjoy listening rather than reading. I struggle with reading, especially since I've gotten to college, reading more what's the word for it? I don't know. You get what I mean. It's not like stories and fun stuff you get to read in college. But for me, I get to hear tone. I get to hear how, like, if someone's laughing, if someone's enjoying themselves, what kind of things are happening in the conversation. And that's why I really enjoy doing it too, because that's the best way I can present my opinion, and I can chuckle and show that, like, the thing I just said is a joke rather than me being super serious about it, right? That's why I really enjoyed the podcast, where it gives away tone.
Absolutely. All right, we're gonna move on just to be cognizant of time. Let's start with this one with Izzy, as you've been in this for longer than anyone else here. Like, what would you say to someone who's considering getting involved with Quidditch media?
Just do it, whatever reason that you want to try something media related, whether it's photography, podcasting, writing, just do it. Honestly, the Quidditch community isn't in a position where we can turn away anybody, because we have faced a severe volunteer burnout. Now, I have my personal feelings about this if anyone wants to ask, because I don't want to take up too much time of this, especially as someone who has been at the World Cups where there was a majority of a lot of volunteers to now with recent nationals. Anyways, but I'll just say, like, have your own reason for doing things as well, and that's perfectly fine. It's okay to not get the writing down, photography down right, perfect. The Quidditch community will tell you if you're doing something wrong. Definitely that happens, but it's okay. It's okay to fail. Just try, just do it, and we really, really appreciate your efforts.
Awesome. So much positivity in that answer. Tate, what about you? What do you think?
Yeah, just go for it. Like, doing the podcast thing was the scariest thing that I've probably ever had to do. Whereas, like, I'm very self-conscious and self-deprecating about myself. So, like, listening to myself edit and record by myself and hearing my voice was really tough. But and, like, just sending it out to strangers who may or may not like me, like, that's really scary thing to do. But as soon as I did it, it was very relieving. And the one thing I would say in terms of, like, before you just go out and do it, is just take a second to pause and think about what you're doing, what you're saying, making sure that you're presenting it in the correct way. It's not as, if you want to have it be taken seriously and have people listen to it and start to build credibility, just take a second to think about it, rather than, like a Facebook post or something like that, where it's just immediate, like, I'm just going to start typing. But like Izzy was saying, super positive, just go for it. I mean, we're not in a position to turn people down. So just do it. Do something scary.
Awesome. And Naresh, what about you?
So I have two things. I do want to bring up a point that Fiona said in the chat, where right now it does seem like we are talking about two different conversations, where what is the best platform? And we've talked about that extensively. And then how should Quidditch be covered? And we're talking about that right now. And I think Fiona brings up a great point, where those two aren't necessarily mutually exclusive, because the way we're covering Quidditch will also determine, like, what platform we're using, or vice versa. I think that's a fascinating conversation that needs to obviously be looked at a lot. And in terms of this question about how someone might want to get into Quidditch media, I think, as everyone has said so far, it's just do it. I think one of the best pieces, not best, but like one of the most fun pieces that I've had reading was Sam Selly's fantasy opinion articles, where he wrote about each team from his point of view. And I think that was fascinating. I think we need a lot more of that type of content, where people are putting out their opinions, and it's not just putting out his opinion. He put out his opinion and stated why he thought certain things were the way it was. So I think there's no harm in having a hot take, as long as you can prove, like, as long as you're doing your research, as long as you're well-intentioned. I think that is, at the end of the day, the most important, because we are a small community. And I know, like, I had this fear of, what if I say something and someone hates me for the rest of my life because of it, right? Like, it's just one of those things. It's a very natural fear. And I think that's something, I don't know if we can, like, okay, I'm sorry, I tend to ramble, but it's more so, like, I don't know if that's something, like, we can ever stop from happening, because obviously it's hard putting yourself out there. But it's just, you want to do something that you're passionate about, because when you're passionate about it, it's going to be a lot easier for you to continue to doing so. And I think just if anyone does want to get involved, it's all about finding a team, like what Jack did with University of Florida. The way the University of Florida took Jack under their wing, and he started covering Florida, and then from there he took off, right? And like Izzy with photography, amazing. Like we've seen Izzy's photos, and they're absolutely brilliant. And not just my other two panelists. There's so many people doing so many great things, and we don't hear about it enough. So I think Quidditch media as a whole needs to have a place. Not okay. I'm sorry, I tend to ramble, but it's more so like I think there is a place for everyone, because we are a small sport, that everyone's opinions are valid. There's no one that's been playing the sport long enough, because again, the sport's only 15 years old. I will challenge you, there is no one in this sport that knows everything. Like that's just a fact. Like it's just one of those things. They're probably the most experienced, but that doesn't mean they know everything about the sport. And I think as we get new ideas, a new whole generation coming in, we need to make it accessible for them to get involved. I'm so sorry. I've been talking for a long time. I do apologize, but yeah.
Yeah, we could move on. That was great though. Yeah, I definitely agree that there's a lot of aspects that are going to go into whatever our future is, and it's much bigger than any one solution. Okay, we're gonna go through this next one. Oh wow, that's embarrassing. And I took it out later, but no one had a fun photo, but it's fine.
Well, hey, Lindsay, this is a mistake. This is Quidditch media.
It's
It
true.
happens. There you go.
The funniest part is I have the slides open. You can't see my computer, but I have it open on my computer and I deleted it there, but it didn't already update here. It's fine. This is a mistake. I should have looked through it before. But let's circle back to Jack. We haven't heard from you in a bit. I know that you have like arguably the most niche Quidditch experience, but is there any like mistakes that you've made through this process that have like developed how you've proceeded to do things more recently?
Oh, many. I was young and stupid. I was afforded the chance to make mistakes at World Cup 6. I was asked to take over the 8th Man Twitter account. And at one point, I think I just tweeted out some wrong information that I had gotten or not confirmed and just heard through the grapevine. And that was probably the most followed Twitter account in Quidditch at the time, maybe after the then IQA. I apologized and I worked to, make sure that I wouldn't do that again. But yeah, especially when you're publishing a ton of content, you're going to make mistakes. And I just hope that everyone is afforded the same chance to grow that I was as a young person.
Naresh, do you have anything you want to add to this, considering how much you've done? There's got to be some mistakes that have been in there.
No, it was pretty much everything what Jack was going to say, because I think Jack really hit the nail on the head, where everyone is going to make mistakes, and we are a small community, so those mistakes do tend to like get magnified, right? I think the point is, I think this goes back into the previous one, where how would you get into, like, if you were getting to Quidditch media, what would you want to find out? And like in terms of mistakes, I think we all need to understand that at the end of the day, we are all volunteers. We're doing this for fun. We're doing this because we enjoy doing this. And like, we don't want to tear anyone down or bash someone for putting out something that, like, if it was wrong information, yeah, they apologized, they admitted it, like, let's move on. Like, they're going to do better, right? I think Quidditch community as a whole just sometimes will be very quick trigger finger, Twitter finger, I don't know. But yeah, I think as a whole, we do need to slow down and just appreciate people's just work, because they do know that, because we all know that they put in a lot of time and effort into this, and we don't want to tear them down for one simple mistake, especially after they've apologized. So yeah.
All right, Izzy, what about you?
So I like to think of mistakes now as learning opportunities, just to make myself feel better about them. But I remember something that the photo manager at the time of the USQ Cup, Michael E. Mason, once told me, in terms of taking pictures, don't take pictures of people who are obviously like getting injured or hurt, or even derpy photos. I feel like those things, the derpy photos, I like to send like privately to someone if they like ask, or it's funny, whatnot. But thinking as a whole about the sport, how we want to present it, that was like a big light bulb moment for me.
Awesome. Okay, so we're gonna wrap up. Just before we get to a small Q&A, if we have some time, we wanted to promote This Is How We Fly. This is a brand new book that has come out by a Texas Quidditch player, Anna. I will drop the link to purchase this in Slack. This is something very different than any other form of Quidditch media we've talked about here, and I think it's a really cool way to get people that may have never even heard of like Muggle Quidditch involved with the sport. I love the idea of like a child like reading this, or like and being like, wow, like this is cool, like it exists, and then like doing their own research. So definitely would recommend checking it out. If it's not your thing to want to read something like this, like gift it to a friend, a cousin, a niece, a nephew, whatever. It's a great way to give back to the Quidditch community with a writer within us, and also get more people just more knowledgeable about the sport. Thanks, Christian. I don't know her back history. I just know she's in Texas now. So thank you for mentioning that. She originally played in the Northeast, apparently. The more you know. We're gonna head to a quick Q&A. We have about 3 minutes left, so I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. And if anyone would like to ask the panelists and I a question, please feel free to put it either in the chat or the Q&A. If not, we can just mingle here. If any of the panelists have any like last thoughts or advice, please feel free to use that now. You can plug your own content. Oh, we got a question from Kenny. It says, what are things that team leadership can do to aid Quidditch media in producing high quality media? Anyone have thoughts on that?
I guess I'll take it. This answer, there's so many right answers to this that Quidditch leaders should be doing, because I think right now there's a lot of Quidditch teams or a lot of Quidditch leadership that just aren't doing enough to help their teams out. And that's not the leadership problem. I'm not putting it all on leadership, because I think Quidditch as a whole has let down the help that leadership does need, because again, we're asking 18, 19, 20-year-olds to run an entire program. That's hard. So in terms of how leadership can help their teams in producing high quality media, I think you need to film games. You can't rely on other players or like Eighth Man or Fast Break News or USQ to film your games. Though you have to film your own games. And when I took over as leadership for Rutgers Quidditch my junior year, that was the first year we were back from our suspension, and we were not a good team. We were 1-14 that year. We weren't good, but we pretty much had film of nearly every single game that we played for the most part. And we used that to get better. We used that to go to nationals and like see what we were doing well, see what we weren't doing well. And at nationals, we were 0-4, not great, but every single game that we played, we got better, right? And I think that comes from filming yourselves, watching yourselves. And at the end of the day, like everyone has a smartphone, and I've seen a lot of comments lately where it's like, oh yeah, like I have a smartphone, like it's terrible smartphone quality. I don't agree with that at all. I think if you go to Rutgers Quidditch and watch any of our film for the last 2 years, our film was taken on a Samsung Galaxy S10, not an iPhone. I know iPhones are great, but like we filmed from a Samsung Galaxy S10, and our film is usually 720 or higher. For the most part, this year was 1080p. It was HD quality, and we were able to create highlight reels because of it. We were able to share our film with other teams to get better. We were able to prop up our own players. There are a couple players. Javed comes to mind from Rutgers, who he is all-world talent. The kid is an absolute monster, and I can share that with other teams or other leadership or other players or just the community itself and prop up my players, right? And I think other college leaderships should be doing more, whether that be filming your own games, using social media a lot more. I think a lot of, I'm so sorry, I don't mean to take over this. I just have one more thing.
We have to wrap up now. So finish that thought and then I'm going to wrap this up.
But yeah, it's all about using your social media to prop up your team to the best of their ability and making sure your social media is active, because this all goes back into recruiting, where if you have an active social media, you're bound to get more views. And if you're getting more views, people are going to be talking about you more, and everything's interlinked. The more people talk about you, potentially the more people are going to come out to tryouts. And that's how you build a sustainable program.
Awesome. So we do have to wrap up. It is 11:20 on my time. There is more questions in the Q&A. So what I'm going to do is put them into the Slack channel. And if you're not on there, get on there. And then our panelists, myself, whoever wants to answer, we can start some threads in there and keep this conversation going. Because as we all know, media, like it needs so much. And I want to keep this conversation open and going. So we're going to wrap this up now. Please check the Slack for more questions, more answers. And thank you all so much for joining us.